My name is Wendelin, and I am 26 years old. 8 years ago, I believed my 18th birthday would be the most special day of my life. I had spent months dreaming about it, planning every detail, imagining the smiles and the celebration. But instead of candles and laughter that day, taught me the hardest lesson about family I have ever learned. Their laughter still echoes in my mind, not the joyful kind, but the cruel kind that came when my tears started falling. Before I share what happened, let me know where you are watching from today. Drop your location in the comments, hit that like button, and subscribe if you have not already. Have you ever felt invisible in your own home? Stay with me, because this story might feel familiar. I grew up in a 2-story white house with a wooden fence in the suburbs of Austin, Texas. From the outside, it looked like the perfect American home. Trimmed lawn flowers in the garden, a swing on the front porch. But what happened inside those walls told a very different story. My father Thomas was 52 years old when everything changed. He worked as a software engineer from home, spending most of his days locked in his office with the door closed. He was a quiet man, the kind who avoided arguments at all costs. Whenever tension filled the air, he would disappear into his work pretending nothing was wrong. I used to think he was just busy. Later, I realized he was hiding. My mother, Patricia, was 49. She ran our household like a general commands an army. Every decision, big or small, went through her. What we ate, what we wore, who we could invite over, everything required her approval. She had strong opinions and an even stronger need to control. But the thing that defined her most was how differently she treated my sister and me. My younger sister, Courtney, was 15 years old. She had been born 6 weeks premature, and when she was 2, she caught a severe respiratory infection that nearly killed her. I remember the hospital visits, the fear in my parents' eyes, the way everything stopped until she recovered. From that moment on, Courtney became the center of our universe. My parents never stopped treating her like she was still that fragile baby fighting for her life. I understood it at first. I was only 5 when she got sick. But even then, I knew my sister needed extra care. What I did not understand was why the extra care never ended even when Courtney grew healthy and strong. She was not fragile anymore. She was demanding, entitled, and used to getting exactly what she wanted. Me, I was the opposite. I learned early that the best way to exist in our house was to not cause problems. I got good grades without being asked. I did chores without being told. I helped my mother cook dinner, cleaned my room, helped Courtney with her homework, and never complained. I thought if I was good enough, quiet enough, helpful enough, maybe one day they would see me too. They never did. I remember the day I got accepted into a prestigious private high school on a full scholarship. I was 14 years old, and I had worked so hard for that letter. When I came home waving the acceptance notice, my heart was pounding with excitement. I expected hugs, maybe even tears of pride. Instead, my mother barely glanced at the paper before turning back to Courtney, who was sulking at the kitchen table over a bad grade in math. That dinner, we talked about finding Courtney a tutor. My scholarship was never mentioned again. The pattern repeated throughout my childhood. When I turned 10, my birthday party was postponed because Courtney had a slight cold. Not a fever, not anything serious, just a runny nose and a cough. But my mother decided it would be too stressful for her, so my party was pushed back 2 weeks. By then, my friends had other plans, and only 3 people showed up. When I turned 13, my parents announced they would combine my birthday with Courtney's, even though our birthdays were 3 months apart. It would be easier, my mother said. More economical. Courtney threw a fit because she did not want to share her special day with me, so the combined party became mostly about her. I blew out my candles while everyone was still singing happy birthday to my sister. For my 16th birthday, I asked for a small party with my close friends. My mother agreed, but said we had to keep it simple because they were saving money for Courtney's 13th birthday extravaganza 2 months later. My Sweet 16 was a family dinner at home with a store-bought cake. Courtney's 13th birthday was a catered party with 30 guests, a DJ, and a custom cake shaped like a unicorn. I learned to stop asking. I learned to stop expecting. I learned to make myself small, to take up as little space as possible, to need nothing from anyone. It was easier that way, less disappointing. But when my 18th birthday approached, something inside me shifted. 18 was different. 18 meant adulthood independence, a new chapter. For the first time in years, I allowed myself to hope. I started working at a coffee shop after school when I was 17. Every dollar I earned went into savings. Some of it I set aside for college, but a portion was specifically for my birthday. I wanted to contribute to show my mother I was not asking for a handout. I had saved $300 over 6 months, and I offered it to help cover the party costs. My mother seemed pleased. She promised we would have the celebration in our backyard. She said I could invite my friends, and she would handle the decorations and food. For once, it felt like she was actually excited about something for me. I invited 25 people, friends from school, a few neighbors, some classmates I had grown close to over the years. I bought a new dress, a beautiful sage green sundress that I had been eyeing for months. I created a playlist of all my favorite songs. I spent hours imagining how the day would unfold. For the first time in my life, I felt seen. I felt like maybe, just maybe, I mattered too. I should have known better. The morning of my 18th birthday, I woke up at 6 in the morning. My eyes opened before my alarm, and for a moment I just lay there in bed, feeling the warmth of anticipation spreading through my chest. This was it, the day I had waited for my entire life. I got dressed quickly and headed downstairs, expecting to find the house already buzzing with activity. The party was supposed to start at 2 in the afternoon, which meant there were only 8 hours to set everything up. I pictured my mother arranging flowers, my father carrying tables to the backyard, maybe even Courtney helping to blow up balloons. Instead, I found the kitchen empty except for my mother, who was on the phone with her back turned to me. She did not hear me come in. She did not turn around. She did not say happy birthday. I waited by the counter, watching her gesture with her free hand as she talked about something that sounded completely unrelated to my party. After a few minutes, she hung up and finally noticed me standing there. "Good morning," she said, already walking past me to open the refrigerator. "Did you eat yet?" No greeting, no acknowledgement, nothing. I told myself it was fine. Maybe she was planning a surprise. Maybe they were all waiting to ambush me with decorations and cheers later. I poured myself a bowl of cereal and ate in silence, clinging to hope like a lifeline. My father never came downstairs. He was already locked in his office working on something that apparently could not wait even on my birthday. I heard his keyboard clicking through the closed door when I walked past. Around 10 in the morning, Courtney finally made her appearance. She came down the stairs with her hair uncombed and her face twisted into a scowl. She looked like she had just woken up from a bad dream, except the dream was my birthday, existing at all. "What is all this?" she asked, pointing at the boxes of decorations my mother had bought the week before. They were stacked in the corner of the living room, waiting to be unpacked. My mother looked up from her phone. "Those are for your sister's party this afternoon." The shift in Courtney's expression was immediate. Her eyes narrowed. Her jaw tightened. I recognized that look. It was the same look she got every time she did not get exactly what she wanted. "Nobody told me about this," she said, her voice already rising. "You just expected me to be here when a bunch of strangers take over our house." "They are not strangers," I said quietly. "They are my friends." Courtney turned to me like she had just noticed I existed. "Your friends," she repeated, her tone dripping with contempt. "You mean those boring people you study with? They are going to be here all afternoon." I looked at my mother, waiting for her to intervene, to tell Courtney to calm down, to remind her that today was my day for once. My mother said nothing. Instead, she walked over to Courtney and put her hands on her shoulders. "Honey," she said softly, "I know this is a lot, but it is just one afternoon. We will get through it together." I felt the familiar coldness creep into my stomach, the same coldness I had felt every time I watched my mother choose Courtney over me. But Courtney was not done. "I am not staying here," she announced. "I do not have anything to wear. Nobody asked me if this was okay. You always do this. You always forget about me." The irony of her words hit me like a slap. Forget about her. Every single day of my life had revolved around making sure Courtney felt important, supported, and loved. And here she was throwing a tantrum because, for once, just once, the spotlight was on someone else. Over the next 2 hours, the situation escalated beyond anything I could have imagined. Courtney locked herself in her room, screaming through the door that she would not come out until the party was canceled. She threatened to run away to her friend's house and never come back. She cried so loudly that I could hear her from the kitchen, her sobs echoing through the hallway like sirens. My mother ran up and down the stairs, trying to calm her down. She brought her snacks, offered to take her shopping, promised they would do something special the next weekend. Nothing worked. Courtney had found her leverage, and she was not letting go. At noon, 2 hours before my party was supposed to begin, my mother came downstairs with red-rimmed eyes and a defeated expression. "Wendelin," she said, "we need to talk." I already knew what was coming. I could feel it in the air like a storm about to break. "We have to postpone the party." The words hit me with the force of a physical blow. I stood there, unable to move, unable to breathe. What I whispered: "Your sister is not in a good place right now." My mother explained, her voice irritatingly calm. "She is having a very difficult time with this. We cannot have a party while she is this upset. It would be too stressful for everyone. 25 people are on their way here," I said, my voice cracking. "I have been planning this for 6 months. You promised." My mother sighed like I was being unreasonable. "Your friends will understand. Family comes first, Wendelin. Your sister needs us right now." "What about what I need?" I asked. "What about what I have needed for the past 18 years? Silence. I turned to my father, who had finally emerged from his office, probably drawn by the commotion. "Dad," I pleaded, "please. Help me." He looked at me for a long moment. I saw something in his eyes, something that might have been guilt or sympathy. But when he opened his mouth, the only words that came out were, "Listen to your mother. She knows best." That was it. No fight, no defense. Just surrender, the same surrender he had practiced my entire life. I was on my own. I did not accept their decision without a fight. After my mother delivered the news, I went upstairs and stood outside Courtney's door. I knocked gently, trying to keep my voice steady. "Courtney," I said, "it is me. Can we please talk?" Silence. Then a muffled, "Go away." I took a deep breath. "Please, just for a minute. I just want to understand what is going on." The door opened a crack, and my sister's face appeared. Her eyes were red and swollen, but there was something else in them too, something cold and calculating. "What do you want?" she asked. "I want you to let me have this one day," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "I have never asked for anything. Every birthday, every holiday, every celebration has been about you. I just want this one afternoon, please." Courtney stared at me for a long moment. Then slowly, a smile spread across her face. Not a kind smile, a victorious one. "Why should everything always be about you?" she said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "You think you are so special just because you are turning 18. You are not. You are nothing. And the fact that you are standing here begging me just proves it." She closed the door in my face. I stood there frozen, feeling the last shreds of hope drain out of me. I had tried. I had really tried to reach her to make her understand. But Courtney did not want to understand. She wanted to win. I walked back downstairs in a daze. When I reached the living room, I found my mother sitting on the couch, scrolling through her phone like nothing had happened, like she had not just destroyed the one thing I had been looking forward to all year. And then I started to cry. I could not help it. The tears came before I could stop them streaming down my face in hot, relentless waves. All the years of being overlooked, dismissed, and forgotten came crashing down on me at once. My mother looked up. "Gwendolyn," she said, her tone disapproving. "What is this about?" Before I could answer, Courtney appeared at the top of the stairs. She had come out of her room just in time to witness my breakdown. "Oh my God," she said loud enough for everyone to hear. "Look at her. She is actually crying over a party. How pathetic." And then she laughed. It was not a small laugh, not a quiet chuckle. It was a full, mocking laugh that seemed to fill the entire house. I looked at my mother, expecting her to defend me, to tell Courtney that her behavior was cruel and unacceptable. Instead, my mother smiled. A small, tired smile, but a smile nonetheless. "Gwendolyn," she said, "you are an adult now. Adults do not cry over things like this. You are being dramatic." My father was standing in the doorway of his office. He said nothing. He just shook his head slightly, like I was the one causing problems. In that moment, something inside me shattered. I looked at the three of them: my laughing sister, my dismissive mother, my silent father, and I saw clearly for the first time what I really meant to this family. Nothing. I meant nothing. I went upstairs and closed my bedroom door. My hands were shaking as I pulled out my phone and started making calls. 25 calls, 25 apologies. 25 times I had to explain that the party was canceled because of a family emergency. I could not bring myself to tell them the truth. My best friend Harper was the last person I called. "Gwendolyn, what is going on?" she asked, her voice full of concern. "Your mom seemed so excited about this party last week." I could not answer. The words would not come. "Is it Courtney again?" Harper asked quietly. I finally broke down and told her everything. The tantrum, the demands, the cancellation, the laughter. Harper listened without interrupting, and when I finished, she said something I will never forget. "This is not normal, Wen. You know that, right? The way they treat you is not okay." I did know. Deep down, I had always known. I had just been too afraid to admit it. That night, my 18th birthday, I sat alone in my dark room. The sage green dress hung on my closet door unworn. My phone kept buzzing with birthday wishes from friends who had no idea what had happened. At 11 in the evening, I was still waiting. Waiting for someone to knock on my door. Waiting for someone to bring me a slice of cake, even a store-bought one. Waiting for someone to acknowledge that today was supposed to be special. No one came. At midnight, my birthday was officially over. And so was my belief that things would ever change. That night, I made a decision. I was done waiting. I was done hoping. I was done being invisible. I was going to leave. And I was never going to let them hurt me again. I did not announce my plans. I did not confront anyone. I simply started preparing in silence. The morning after my birthday, I woke up early and went to school like nothing had happened. My mother seemed relieved that I was not making a fuss. Courtney acted like the whole thing had never occurred. My father disappeared into his office the moment breakfast was over. Everything was back to normal for them. But for me, nothing would ever be normal again. I started by looking at my finances. I had about $400 saved, not counting the $300 I had offered for the party that never happened. My mother had never actually taken that money, so it was still mine. $700 was not much, but it was a start. I picked up extra shifts at the coffee shop. My manager, a kind woman named Diane, noticed I was working more hours and asked if everything was okay. I told her I was saving for college. It was not entirely a lie. Within 2 weeks, I had added another $200 to my savings. I also started tutoring middle school students in math 3 evenings a week. The parents paid me $15 an hour, and I took on as many clients as I could handle. By the end of the first month, I had $1,200. I opened a new bank account at a different branch, one where my mother never went. I had learned from experience that she liked to keep tabs on my spending. This account would be mine alone. While I worked on my finances, I also researched my options for college. I had already been accepted to the University of Texas with a partial scholarship, but partial meant I would still need money for housing, food, and books. Money I was not sure my parents would provide, especially after everything that had happened. I discovered there were emergency grants for students from difficult family situations. There were work-study programs that would allow me to earn money while going to school. There were scholarships I had not applied for yet that were still accepting applications. I spent my lunch breaks in the school library, filling out forms and writing essays. I applied to 12 additional scholarships in 2 months. I got 5 of them. The biggest breakthrough came when I started talking to Harper about living arrangements. Harper's parents had bought her a small apartment near the university campus as a graduation gift. It had 2 bedrooms, and Harper was looking for a roommate to help with utilities and keep her company. "What would you think about living together?" she asked one afternoon when we were studying at her house. I stared at her. "Are you serious?" "Of course I am serious. You are my best friend. And honestly, you need to get out of that house when. I have been watching them treat you like garbage for years. It is killing me." I did not have to think about it. I said yes, immediately. We worked out the details over the next few weeks. I would pay $400 a month for my share of rent and utilities. It was tight, but with my work-study job and the scholarships, it was manageable. I put down the deposit in April, 2 months before graduation. Harper's parents were wonderful about it. They even helped me move some of my things over early storing boxes in the apartment's small closet. Through all of this, my family noticed nothing. I continued to live in their house, eat their food, do my chores, and keep my head down. I spoke when spoken to. I smiled when required. I gave them no reason to suspect that anything had changed. But inside, I was counting down the days. Graduation came and went. I walked across the stage, received my diploma, and did not look for my family in the crowd. They were there, of course. My mother had insisted on a nice dinner afterward to celebrate, though most of the conversation centered around Courtney making the cheerleading squad for next fall. 1 week after graduation, my moment came. My family went out for dinner to celebrate Courtney's cheerleading achievement. I told them I had a headache and wanted to stay home. My mother barely looked at me as she ushered everyone out the door. The moment their car disappeared around the corner, Harper pulled up in her truck. We worked fast. I had already packed most of my important belongings into boxes and hidden them in my closet. We carried everything down in under an hour. Clothes books, the sage green dress I never got to wear, a few photographs, in my laptop. When the truck was loaded, I walked back into the house one last time. I went to the kitchen and sat down at the table where I had eaten thousands of meals, most of them in silence. I pulled out a piece of paper and a pen, and I wrote a letter. The letter was short. I thanked them for raising me. I told them I needed to find a place where I could be loved for who I am. I asked them not to contact me. I did not apologize, and I did not explain. I left the letter on the table, weighted down by the salt shaker. Then I walked out the front door. Harper was waiting in the truck, the engine running. I climbed into the passenger seat and closed the door. "You ready?" she asked. I looked at the white house with the wooden fence, the swing on the porch, the flowers in the garden. The house that had never really been home. "Yes," I said. "Let us go." As we drove away, I watched the house grow smaller and smaller in the side mirror until it finally disappeared. I was crying, but not from sadness. These were tears of freedom, of relief, of finally being able to breathe. I was 18 years old, and my life was just beginning. The first few months of independence were the hardest and the best of my life. Harper and I moved into our tiny apartment near campus. It had creaky floors, thin walls, and a kitchen so small that only one person could stand in it at a time. But it was ours. For the first time in my life, I had a space where I belonged. Money was tight in ways I had never experienced before. I learned to live on instant noodles, frozen vegetables, and whatever discounted items I could find at the grocery store. I discovered that bread lasts longer in the refrigerator and that you can make a jar of peanut butter stretch for 3 weeks if you are careful. Eating out was a luxury I could not afford. New clothes were out of the question. But despite the financial struggles, I felt something I had never felt before. Freedom. Real freedom. I could stay up late without anyone criticizing me. I could play my music without being told to keep it down. I could invite friends over without asking permission. I could eat breakfast at midnight or skip it entirely. Every decision, no matter how small, was mine to make. The first week, my mother called 47 times. I did not answer a single one. Her voicemail started with concern. "Gwendolyn, where are you? We came home and you were gone. Call me back." Then came the anger. "This is ridiculous. You are being selfish and immature. Come home immediately." Then the guilt. "How could you do this to us? Your father cannot sleep. Courtney is upset. Do you have any idea what you are putting this family through?" After a week of unanswered calls, my father sent a single text message. "Your mother is very upset. Please come home." That was it. That was no questions about whether I was safe, no concern about where I was living or how I was eating. Just a request to come back and make my mother feel better. I blocked all 3 of their numbers. The guilt hit me hard at first. Late at night when I could not sleep, I would lie in bed and wonder if I had made a terrible mistake. Maybe I was being too harsh. Maybe I should have tried harder to work things out. Maybe I owed them more than a letter on the kitchen table. But every time those doubts crept in, I remembered the sound of Courtney's laughter, the sight of my mother's smile, the silence of my father standing in the doorway. I did not owe them anything. Harper was my anchor during those early days. She never pushed me to talk about what happened, but she was always there when I needed her. We would stay up late watching old movies, sharing a single bowl of popcorn because that was all we could afford. She made me laugh when I wanted to cry. She reminded me that I was strong even when I felt like I was falling apart. School started in August, and I threw myself into my studies with a determination I had never felt before. I was majoring in business with a minor in psychology. I chose business because I wanted financial independence, the kind of security that meant I would never have to depend on anyone else. I chose psychology because I wanted to understand why families like mine worked the way they did, why some people could not love their children equally, why silence could be just as damaging as cruelty. My professors noticed my dedication. By the end of my first semester, I had a 4.0 grade average. By the end of my first year, one of my professors offered me a position as a research assistant. The job paid minimum wage, but it came with mentorship and connections that would prove invaluable later. I also kept working at the coffee shop and tutoring on the side. Between classes, jobs, and homework, I barely had time to sleep. But I preferred it that way. When I was busy, I did not have time to think about the family that had thrown me away. In my sophomore year, I got an internship at a tech company downtown. It started as a part-time position, just 20 hours a week, but the experience was priceless. I learned about corporate culture, project management, and how to navigate office politics. My supervisors liked my work ethic and my willingness to take on extra responsibilities. By my junior year, the company offered me a paid part-time position with flexible hours. The salary was more than I had ever earned before. For the first time, I did not have to choose between buying groceries and paying rent. I also started making real friends. Not just acquaintances from class, but genuine connections with people who cared about me. We would gather at someone's apartment on Friday nights, cooking cheap meals together and talking about our dreams. I learned what it felt like to be part of a community that actually wanted me there. My 21st birthday was a revelation. Harper organized a surprise party at our apartment. She invited everyone I had grown close to over the past 3 years. There were balloons and streamers and a cake that someone had baked from scratch. When I walked through the door and saw all those faces, all those people who had shown up just for me, I burst into tears. For the first time in my life, I had a real birthday party. One where I was celebrated, not tolerated. One where my presence was the whole point, not an inconvenience. That night, I made a wish before blowing out my candles. But for the first time, I did not wish for something I did not have. I wished for the strength to keep building this beautiful life I had created. Around the same time, I met Marcus. He was a software developer at the company where I worked, a quiet man with kind eyes and an easy smile. We started talking during lunch breaks, then coffee runs, then long walks after work. He was patient and thoughtful, never pushing me to share more than I was ready to. When I finally told him about my family, he listened without judgment. He did not try to fix anything or offer solutions. He just held my hand and said, "I am sorry they could not see how amazing you are. But I see it, and I am not going anywhere." I had forgotten what it felt like to be truly seen. Marcus reminded me. By my senior year, I was thriving in ways I never thought possible. I graduated with honors, my diploma clutched in my hands, like a trophy I had won against all odds. The tech company offered me a full-time position before I even walked across the stage. I was 22 years old. I had a career, an apartment, a partner who loved me, and friends who felt like family. But the past was not done with me yet. 5 years after I left home, a message appeared in my social media inbox from someone I barely remembered. It was a distant cousin on my mother's side, a woman named Laura, who I had only met a handful of times at family gatherings when I was young. Her message was brief and polite, asking if we could talk sometime. She had news about my family, she said. Things I might want to know. I almost ignored it. I had worked so hard to build a life separate from them. Why would I want to reopen those old wounds? But curiosity won out. Laura and I spoke on the phone a week later. What she told me was both shocking and, in a strange way, completely predictable. The unraveling had started almost immediately after I left. When my family came home from their celebratory dinner and found my letter, my mother had apparently lost control. She called the police to report me missing, only to be told that an 18-year-old leaving home was not a crime. She called my friends, my school, even the coffee shop where I used to work. No one would tell her where I was. For weeks, she was obsessed with finding me. She hired a private investigator who eventually tracked down my address, but by then, I had already made it clear through a lawyer that I wanted no contact. My mother was furious. She told anyone who would listen that I was ungrateful, selfish, and mentally unstable. But her anger eventually turned to despair. And that was when things at home started to fall apart. Without me there to deflect attention, my mother's intensity focused entirely on Courtney. The same coddling that had seemed like love now felt suffocating. My mother wanted to know where Courtney was at all times. She monitored her phone, her social media, her friendships. She criticized her weight, her grades, her choice of clothes. Courtney, who had spent her whole life demanding attention, discovered that too much attention was its own kind of prison. She started acting out, skipping school, lying about where she was going, falling in with a group of older kids who introduced her to parties and alcohol, and eventually worse. By the time she was 17, Courtney had dropped out of high school. By 18, she was living with a boyfriend my parents had never met. By 19, she had cut off contact with them entirely, just like I had. The irony was not lost on me. Meanwhile, my parents' marriage crumbled. Without children to focus on, my mother and father realized they had nothing left in common. The house that had once been filled with noise and activity became silent and cold. My father retreated even further into his work, sometimes not emerging from his office for days. My mother wandered the empty rooms, apparently talking to herself about where she had gone wrong. They filed for divorce 3 years after I left. My father moved to a small apartment across town. My mother kept the house, the big white house with the wooden fence, but she rattled around in it like a ghost. Laura told me all of this with a mixture of sadness and resignation. "I did not know if I should be telling you this," she said, "but I thought you deserved to know. They are not doing well when, any of them." I thanked her for reaching out and ended the call. That night I sat on my balcony and thought about what I had learned. A part of me felt vindicated. They had treated me like I did not matter, and now they were experiencing the consequences of their choices. But a larger part of me just felt sad. Sad for the family we could have been. Sad for the love that was never given equally. Sad for all the wasted years. A few months after my conversation with Laura, I received an email at my work address. It was from my mother. She had apparently found me through LinkedIn, tracked down my company, and sent a message to my professional email. The boundary violation alone was enough to make my blood boil. The email was long and rambling. She told me about the divorce. She told me about Courtney leaving. She told me how lonely she was, how much she missed me, how she thought about me every day. But nowhere in that entire email was there an apology. Not once did she acknowledge what she had done wrong. Instead, she framed everything as something that had happened to her, as if she were the victim of circumstances beyond her control. She ended the email by asking me to come home. She said she needed me. She said I was the only one who could help her. I read the email 3 times, then I closed it and did not respond. 1 year later, I ran into my father at a technology conference downtown. I almost did not recognize him. He had aged dramatically since I had last seen him. His hair was completely gray now, his shoulders stooped, his face lined with exhaustion. He looked like a man who had given up. We spotted each other across the crowded lobby. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then he walked over to me. "Gwendolyn," he said quietly, "you look wonderful." "Thank you," I replied, keeping my voice neutral. We made small talk for a few minutes. He told me about his work, his apartment, his new life as a divorced man. He did not mention my mother or Courtney. Finally, I asked the question that had been burning inside me for 8 years. "Why did you never stand up for me, Dad? Why did you let them treat me that way?" He was quiet for a long time. When he spoke, his voice was heavy with regret. "I knew it was wrong," he said. "I knew from the time you were a little girl that your mother favored Courtney, but I did not know how to fight her. I did not know how to be the father you needed. I told myself it would work out somehow, that you were strong enough to handle it." He paused. "I was a coward and I am sorry." I stared at him. 8 years of silence, and this was all he had to offer. "Thank you for saying that," I said finally, "but it does not change anything." He nodded, his eyes glistening. "I know," he whispered. "I know it does not." We parted ways without making plans to meet again. I did not look back. 2 years after that encounter, I received a text message from an unknown number. It was Courtney. Her message was short and desperate. She was 24 years old. She had just escaped from an abusive marriage. She had no money, no job, no place to stay. She had burned bridges with everyone she knew. She had no one left to turn to except me. She ended her message with 3 words that surprised me. "I am sorry." It was the first time in my entire life that my sister had ever apologized to me. I did not respond immediately. I needed time to process, to figure out how I felt, to decide what I was willing to give. 3 days later, I called her. We talked for 2 hours. Courtney told me everything. About her relationship with our mother after I left, about feeling smothered and desperate to escape, about the boyfriend who became a husband, who became a nightmare, about finally finding the courage to leave, even though it meant losing everything. She told me about the birthday party, about how she had been jealous and petty and cruel, about how she had spent years convincing herself that I was the problem, that I deserved what happened, about how it had taken hitting rock bottom to realize that she had been the one who was broken all along. "I am not asking you to forgive me," she said, her voice cracking. "I know I do not deserve it. I just wanted you to know that I see it now. I see what I did. And I am so, so sorry." I listened to her tears through the phone. I thought about all the years of pain, all the moments of cruelty, all the damage that could never be undone. And then I thought about what holding on to that anger had cost me. The sleepless nights, the bitter memories, the part of my heart that had hardened to protect itself. I made a decision. "Courtney," I said, "I am not ready to forgive you. I do not know if I ever will be, but I am willing to try to build something new." I helped her find a shelter for women escaping domestic violence. I connected her with resources for job training and housing assistance. I sent her some money to get back on her feet. But I also set clear boundaries. I told her that our relationship would have to be rebuilt slowly on my terms. I told her that trust had to be earned, not demanded. I told her that if she ever slipped back into her old patterns, I would walk away again. She agreed to everything. We started talking once a month, then twice a month, then weekly. Slowly, carefully, we began to know each other as adults, not as the favored child and the forgotten one, but as two women trying to heal from the wounds of their childhood. It was not easy. There were setbacks, misunderstandings, moments when I wondered if I was making a mistake. But there was also growth, genuine growth on both sides. For the first time in our lives, Courtney and I were becoming sisters. I am 26 years old now, and I am sharing this story from the living room of the apartment I share with Marcus. Through the window, I can see the Austin skyline glittering against the evening sky. In the kitchen, Marcus is making dinner, singing off key to the radio. This is my life now, a career I am proud of, a partner who loves me, friends who feel like family, and a relationship with my sister that is slowly, carefully healing. But getting here was not easy. For years after I left home, I carried the wounds of my childhood like stones in my pockets. Every success felt hollow because a part of me still believed I did not deserve it. Every relationship felt fragile because I was waiting for people to see the real me and leave. It took therapy to unpack all of that. I started seeing a counselor in my junior year of college, and I still see her now, though less frequently. She helped me understand that the way my family treated me was not my fault. She helped me see that my value is not determined by how others treat me. She helped me learn how to set boundaries, how to trust again, how to love myself. The hardest lesson was accepting that some people cannot love you the way you need to be loved, not because you are unlovable, but because they lack the capacity. My mother's inability to see me, my father's inability to protect me, Courtney's inability to share none of that, was about me. It was about their own limitations, their own wounds, their own fears. Understanding that did not erase the pain, but it did set me free from it. I no longer carry anger toward my family, not because they earned my forgiveness, but because anger was poisoning me, not them. Letting go was not a gift to them. It was a gift to myself. My mother and I have not spoken since that email 6 years ago. I do not know how she is doing, and honestly, I do not want to know. Maybe someday that will change. Maybe it will not. Either way, I am at peace with it. My father and I exchanged a few messages after that conference encounter. He is trying in his limited way to reach out. I have not closed the door completely, but I have not opened it wide either. We exist in a kind of neutral space, neither connected nor entirely disconnected. Courtney is the surprise of my adult life. She is 24 now, living in a small apartment, working as a receptionist at a dental office. She is in therapy too, working through the damage that our upbringing caused. She is sober employed and slowly rebuilding her life. We talk every week now, sometimes about the past, but mostly about the present, about her job, my work, Marcus, her new friends. We are not best friends, and we may never be, but we are family, real family, in a way we never were when we lived under the same roof. Last month for my 26th birthday, Marcus threw a small gathering at our apartment. Harper was there, of course, along with a handful of close friends. There were candles on the cake and presents wrapped in colorful paper and laughter that filled every corner of the room. When it came time to blow out the candles, I closed my eyes and realized I had nothing to wish for. Everything I had ever wanted, love, security, belonging a place where I mattered. I had built it myself. With my own 2 hands, with my own stubborn heart, with the help of people who chose to love me, not because they had to, but because they wanted to. The best birthday party of my life was not the one that got canceled. It was every birthday since then, every celebration with people who genuinely cared, every moment spent surrounded by chosen family instead of obligated relatives. If you are watching this, and you are living in a situation like mine, where you feel invisible, unheard, unloved. I want you to know something. Your feelings are valid. Your pain is real. And you deserve so much more than what you are getting. Leaving is terrifying. Building a new life from scratch is exhausting. There will be days when you question everything, when you wonder if you made a mistake, when the loneliness feels unbearable. But on the other side of that fear is freedom. Real freedom. The kind that lets you breathe, really breathe, maybe for the first time in your life. You are not trapped. You are not worthless. You are not defined by how your family treats you. You are capable of creating a life that reflects your true value. And you deserve to be surrounded by people who see that value every single day. So here is my question for you. Have you ever had a moment when you realized you deserved more than what you were receiving? I would love to hear your story in the comments below. Please share your thoughts, your experiences, your own moments of awakening. If this story touched you, please hit that like button so more people can find it. Subscribe to this channel so you do not miss the next story. And share this video with someone who might need to hear it today. You never know whose life you might change just by passing along a message of hope. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being part of this community. And remember, sometimes the best birthday party is the one you throw for yourself, surrounded by people who actually want to be there. Take care of yourselves. I will see you in the next one.